So it should be no surprise that AI YouTube channels are on the rise. Not only that, but they are covering, of course, our industry, amusement rides and amusement ride incidents. And you guys absolutely loved the videos I did on these AI channels last year. And of course, to celebrate nearly 1 year since then, we're going to be taking a look and seeing how these channels have evolved, taking a look at a specific video. This one is from the channel Beyond the Known, which we did look at previously, but this is a much newer video. You guys have absolutely been killing it with the responses. Looking at the submission form, it's ridiculous. So keep sending those in, even though this is torture. So let's get some brain rot, shall we? Boy, nobody was hurt. Nope, nobody was hurt. All right, I don't think so. Nobody was hurt. Okay. All right. Sure. Yes. Nobody was hurt. Someone literally died, for those of you who don't know, in this accident. I'm probably gonna have to blur it because I don't know why they would show this, but jeez.
These roller coaster accidents reveal how thrilling rides turned into terrifying disasters no one saw coming.
It's literally not even real.
Heights to sudden crashes. The adrenaline rush quickly flipped into chaos. Behind the screams and thrills lie stories of deadly mistakes, broken safety measures, and moments when the ride stopped being fun.
It's a theme park tragedy. It happened overnight. We mentioned this at the top of the show. At least 4 people were killed in Australia when a popular ride malfunctioned. At
least he doesn't have the overlay that no one was hurt.
Some of these accidents left scars that changed the amusement park world forever.
Well, most of these that have been shown are literally just fake so far, so we're off to a great start.
Get ready to dive into these chilling incidents that should never have happened but did.
Never have happened but did. I don't even know that one. Interesting.
Chaos, the rocket's deadly snap. At Divo Ostro Amusement Park in St. Petersburg, Russia, the rocket was a ride like no other. It launched riders 200 feet into the sky, spinning them around in a dizzying blur designed to mimic the sensation of space travel.
So I actually don't know much about this accident. I'm gonna look it up. All right, so there was a video of it, but it seems to have since been removed. All right, this is hilarious. This news article like mentions this whole thing, and there's, oh my god, this is terrible. This is, oh my god, I hate modern news sites. There's literally less than 2 sentences on the incident. Like, the video's unavailable, so like I can't get a good understanding otherwise, but like, how is this allowed? Literally every website that had any mirror of this has just died. All right, so there's nothing on it other than that a cable snapped at some point on the ride and resulted in some kind of delay. So let's go back to that.
The thrill of zero gravity, it was an unforgettable rush.
Zero gravity? I don't think that's really what this ride's about.
But in 2010, the excitement turned to terror. Midway through a routine ride, disaster struck. A crucial cable suddenly snapped, leaving the passengers stranded high.
All right, so it looks like this AI has found the video, shockingly, but it looks, honestly, it reminds me of the slingshot at Kissimmee, which is also a fun time ride, which this is, which basically they have redundant cables for a reason. Like, yes, it's going to get off axis. You're going to get a very uncomfortable evacuation type situation, but no one's in danger. It's the ride operating almost as designed in an emergency situation like that. So, I mean, certainly, worth investigating. Definitely a near miss, but worthy of being one of the 15 roller coaster accidents that should have never happened. Not so.
Above the ground, swinging helplessly in midair. Panic swept through the riders as they dangled hundreds of feet up, suspended between earth and sky.
I love the cadence of how it talks. It's just like hundreds of feet up as it like it doesn't have any concept of a start and end of a sentence.
Emergency crews arrived quickly, but the rescue dragged on for over an hour.
An hour is not bad. Let's say I think Windseeker rides that have like a dedicated evac platform built for them would take longer than an hour.
Though no one suffered physical injuries, the trauma was undeniable.
An hour is not bad.
Investigators examined the cause. They found a hidden danger lurking beneath the surface. The scorching heat that day had weakened the ride's cables, which were never designed to endure such extreme temperatures.
This is in Russia, right? This doesn't seem right to me. I think there's probably more information that this source probably didn't find, because I imagine there's no accident report that's public for this, and even then, being in that location, I don't know if it was properly investigated by, you know, someone who knows what they're talking about anyway.
Still, despite the obvious risk, the park chose to repair the rocket and reopen it later that year. The incident left
The obvious risk. The ride's safe.
an indelible mark. Once celebrated as a must-ride thrill, the rocket became a haunting reminder that some dangers remain invisible until it's almost too late. Before we move on, check this out. The Scream Weaver at Denmark's Bop It amusement park.
All right, so we've got an obviously AI-generated thing here. Let me look it up. Okay. I cannot find anything online about a ride called Scream Weaver at Bakken. Only thing it's got is Scream Weaver at Carowinds, which was a Schwarzkopf Enterprise that's been removed. And nothing for this ride at Bakken. I guess we'll continue, but obviously the image here is fully AI generated. This is actually the image they used for the thumbnail. Fully AI generated slop, and honestly, pretty obvious AI generated slop. I don't know how you really couldn't tell.
Was notorious for its jarring inversions.
How? It's not real.
On a bright summer day in 2018, 5 thrill seekers, all experienced skydivers, mysteriously fell from their seats mid-loop. Investigators initially suspected harness failure, but a closer look revealed expertly severed straps. Was it a coordinated daring stunt gone wrong, or something far more sinister involving disgruntled park staff?
What the hell? That is a fully made up, like, accident that literally that never happened. That's a real park. Bakken is a real amusement park. Borderline slander with what they're saying here. I mean, saying it could be something caused by park staff. Borderline slandering the park, making up a completely fake incident that never happened. Wow. Well, a year ago, AI was not doing that, so I guess it's gone somewhere.
Comment below.
Jeez.
Mead Olympus catastrophe.
Mead Olympus? That's how we're pronouncing it?
Human catapult rides have always been the ultimate daredevil challenge, hurling riders into the sky at jaw-dropping speeds and heights. The Med Olympus catapult in Wisconsin
Med
is one
Olympus,
of the most
yes.
intense of its kind.
That's how it's
Rocketing
pronounced.
people over 450 feet into the air.
No, it was not. The fun time rides, I think, maybe go around 450. I think it might even be 300. It's not that tall. The Gravity Works or whatever that made that ride, I don't even think they exceed 200 feet. But nitpicky. Let's get back to it.
At speeds of 100 miles per hour. It was
No
a
way.
vehicle designed to terrify, and thrill seekers loved every second of it. But in 2015, that thrill came dangerously close to becoming a tragedy. Drew Larson stood by with a camera, filming his 13-year-old son strapped in and ready for launch. But just before the countdown hit 0, the unthinkable happened. One of the massive steel cables, charged with nearly 40 tons of tension, suddenly snapped with a violent crack.
So first thing, 40 tons, no. That's just insane. That is not accurate. I don't know what the actual weight is, but it is far less than that. Second of all, not a steel cable. These rides, this specific model, all these elastic slingshots, they use elastic bands on the part that's near the rider. Up in the tower, connected to the winch that actually tensions the whole thing, there are steel cables there. However, no, there were no steel cables near the riders. I will say, you know, I've dogged on these rides for being unsafe, because they kind of are compared to other rides. I've done full videos on all the accidents on these things. But, you know, there's some safety designed into it. Look at how far away the riders are from those elastic bands that obviously have a tendency to snap occasionally. Riders are far away, they're contained, they were safe. And I think this incident helps show that. No one was injured. So, is it the safest design of ride? No, definitely not. Could you do better? Yeah, you could do better. But, you know, is this the worst thing ever? I don't think so.
It recoiled with terrifying force, striking the ride's frame just inches from the boy's body. The crowd gasped. For a split second, silence hung heavy in the air. Had the cable hit differently, the outcome could have been fatal.
Yeah, I mean, the cable wasn't going to hit differently. It was designed so it wouldn't.
Miraculously, the boy walked away unharmed, though the horror on everyone's faces told the true story. The ride, which had passed...
I hate when they show, like, fun time rides after this. Those fun time slingshots, they use a spring box, they use steel cables the whole way. They do not have the same risk, and they should not be associated with the elastic band slingshots or reverse bungee rides that actually had the accident shown.
Every inspection was shut down on the spot and dismantled within 2 days. One snapped cable had revealed how close Thrill could come to catastrophe. The Flight Commander's fatal fall.
Flight Commander!
For years, the Flight Commander at Kings Island in Ohio had been a magnet for thrill seekers. Since its debut in 1976, it prompted...
76? Is this ride that old? According to a different AI, from 1990 to 1995. So no, that's already wrong.
Something unique. Riders seated in small open pods that could rotate a full 360 degrees using a joystick. Elevated 60 feet above the ground, passengers spun through the air with a thrilling sense of control.
Thrilling sense of control. Interesting wording.
One, that illusion of safety was shattered in the most devastating way. On what began as a routine ride, a woman riding alone suddenly slipped from her pod and plunged over 60 feet to the ground. Witnesses were horrified as they realized
playing this in reverse.
anyone could do. Investigators were initially baffled. The victim had been secured by both a lap bar and a shoulder harness, leaving no clear explanation as to how she could have fallen. The truth emerged in the following days. The woman had been intoxicated, and her limp, unresponsive state had likely allowed her body to slip past the restraints designed to keep her safe.
This is a really interesting one, and one I'd like to cover more. The problem is, with it being so old, finding, accurate reports from the investigation are pretty hard to come by. That being said, it is very interesting. I think there's a lot of lessons the industry took from this incident, both with regard to actual rider requirements, should you be allowed to be on a ride if you're intoxicated, and also with regard to containment, because even if you are allowed on a ride or are able to get on a ride in that state, should you be able to escape your restraints, especially in a ride like this with so much negative G's? Probably not. So, it kind of boils down to both things, and I think there's a lot that's been learned from this, which is very interesting. But definitely something I want to cover more, just don't really have any information on it.
The Flight Commander was immediately closed and only reopened the following year, but its reputation was forever scarred. By 1995, after a string of other operational problems, the ride was permanently dismantled, its legacy marked by the shadow of one tragic fall. Vertical Accelerator's heart-stopping snap. In 2009,
back to another slingshot, or reverse bungee.
To the Vertical Accelerator at Cobra Adventure Park in Florida, ready for the slingshot ride that would blast them 160 feet into the air. The ride was known for its speed, power, and the gut-wrenching seconds of weightlessness it delivered. But as the countdown began, something was terribly wrong. One side of the cables looked dangerously frayed, stretched almost to its limit.
All right, hold on.
One side of the...
If they started the ride with a cable looking like that, then yeah, this would be much more worthy of a accident that shouldn't have happened. No, this screenshot, this image he's showing is from after the accident happened. If they started tensioning the cables and it looked like that, yeah, I completely agree. This would be a serious thing worth studying. No, that's another elastic slingshot doing elastic slingshot things. No one was seriously injured. It's a near miss, worth studying, worth being aware of, absolutely. But on this list, not so much.
Cables looked dangerously frayed, stretched almost to its limit. The ride operator prepared to launch, unaware that disaster was seconds away. Then it happened. One of the steel cables suddenly snapped with a violent crack. The riders were suspended helplessly as the tension in the ride vanished.
You keep mirroring the image. It's so weird. It's obvious. I think it's just to prevent from getting copyright striked.
The operator's quick reaction stopped the launch before the situation turned deadly. Footage of the terrifying near miss spread quickly, showing just how close this moment had come to tragedy. Cobra Adventure Park released a statement insisting that all of their rides met safety standards, but the video left the public deeply unsettled. The vertical accelerator was shut down immediately following the incident. Today, it remains at the park as a haunting reminder of how fast a thrill can turn into disaster, and how close those two riders came to becoming part of a tragedy.
Part of a tragedy? I don't know about that. I mean, we've seen incidents where, you know, these rides are in motion where one of those bungees snap, and in the worst of scenarios, you end up with injuries. I think the design of the cage that's around the riders is kind of there for that. One thing I will say this is with this manufacturer of this slingshot or reverse bungee ride, they have redundant bungees. Both can support the weight of the capsule. So while I think it would end up, you know, misaligned, I don't think you'd end up with it fully detaching or hitting another tower or something like that, like you've seen in some of the other ones that only have the single cable or in like a cartoon. Like, and it's not going to be that kind of situation.
Ride of Steel tragedy.
Which one?
At Darien Lake Theme Park in New York, the Ride of Steel promised the electrifying sensation of flying like Superman. Towering over 200 feet tall,
Bro, wrong ride.
And hurdling riders at speeds exceeding 70 miles per hour, it opened in 1999 as one of the park's
How do you source footage this badly?
Its soaring heights lurked a dark history of danger and tragedy.
Wrong ride.
In 2011, disaster struck in the most devastating way. Sergeant James Hackemer, a war veteran who had lost both legs,
Dude, that's my footage.
as the train thundered toward us.
He credited it. I'll give him credit.
Hill,
Good job.
Hackemer was violently ejected from his seat, falling to his death below. An investigation uncovered
My footage again.
All
I appreciate that these are being credited. My rule with using footage, I actually don't mind. If you guys want to use any of my footage, animations, videos, anything on Costa Rica College 2, real free. You can use it, no problem. My only stipulation is you have to give credit, and you cannot use it for an AI-generated content, AI-generated video. So yeah, this would be a violation of that. So maybe I'll issue a little copyright takedown notice, but it'll be after this video. Gotta get my views first, because nobody watches the educational videos, guys. Please watch the educational videos and stop watching these.
riders must have 2 functioning legs. Despite this, park officials allowed Hackemer to ride, fully aware of his disability.
That boils it down a little bit too much. Saying 2 functioning legs is a little bit too broad. You know, in the grand scheme of rider requirements, there's many more things that you need to know. And truth be told, I don't remember all the details of this incident off the top of my head. But I've done a full video on it, so I have it all in there. I'm sure you can find it. But the thing with rider requirements is just saying must have 2 legs to ride is not enough. You have to give information, you know, do those 2 legs need to be able to brace, aka do they need to be functioning in some way? Do they need to be able to support a rider? How present do they need to be? Can they be present to the knee? Is present past the knee needed? You know, what defines a full leg? All this information is important, and just saying they need to have 2 legs is not enough. And it, you know, I believe the park in this case had that information. They had information from the manufacturer that they had put into their training. Obviously, you know, for one reason or another, this rider that did not meet those requirements was still allowed on the ride, which ultimately resulted in the accident. And that's where the focus needs to be. You know, people can say, okay, well, the manufacturer, this, you know, ride should have had this, or even rider argued this, rider said this. That's really beyond the point. The point and what ultimately caused this accident was the operators not following their procedures. And going beyond that to try and focus on anything else is honestly counterproductive.
Even claimed a park employee encouraged him to go on the ride, though Hackemer reportedly declined a safety brochure, insisting he understood the risks.
So that's also partially true. The rider in this case went to their guest relations and, you know, seeked out information regarding accessibility at the park. I don't remember the exact details of what he was given, but essentially, you know, he was given the information. Whether he chose to read that or not, you know, we will never know. But beyond that, Yeah.
The park was held liable and Ackerman's family received a settlement, but this was not the ride's first deadly incident. Back in 1999,
Yes, it was.
weighing over 300 pounds, slipped from his restraints and fell 10 feet, leading to a multi-million-dollar payout.
I hate when things like that are just reduced down to, oh, it was a payout. Oh, it was an injury. The injury is what's important in this. The injury is what we want to pay attention to. Knowing how much they got paid has no relevance to me or anyone in the industry or anyone who wants to prevent future incidents. Like, just, oh my god, it's so pointless. Rant aside, back to the video, but
After those early warnings, the park made safety changes, yet the Ride of Steel's shadow remained. Its promise of Superman's flight forever stained by fatal flaws and haunting losses that continue to echo through.
Flaws? Not so sure about. We'll discuss, I believe there's another incident later in this video that's discussed with those Intamin T-bars that came out of the scene in the late 90s, early 2000s, and those restraints in their original design, you might be able to argue they were flawed. Certainly they were flawed from a perspective of, interacting with the American public and people's perception of how to use restraints and what is acceptable. Were they flawed in terms of their actual design? Oh, maybe. It depends on the angle you take. In any of those cases, though, they've been modified since. Don't think there's a single ride that still uses the original design that came out in the late 90s. So, at least in the US. So, I think that speaks at least something. But, in the case of the incident that's mentioned here in this video, covered the 2013 one, the ride had new restraints by that time. They had already been modified. So, I don't really know if you can say that there were design flaws in this case.
Tsunami Ride. Disaster at M&D's. The Tsunami Ride at M&D's theme park in Scotland was once a thrilling inverted steel coaster that dazzled visitors with its soaring loops and sharp twists.
Oh, dazzled. Wasn't very well liked.
Found a permanent home at the park in 2004 and quickly became a crowd favorite, promising adrenaline-fueled excitement.
Again, don't get what's with the random footage. It's not helping.
Terror in 2011 when the ride broke down unexpectedly, leaving passengers stranded 60 feet above the ground.
That is not footage of the incident you're describing. But yeah, a ride being stopped, having to be evac'd from, a control point like that, that's not really something that needs to be considered an accident.
For a grueling 8 hours, emergency responders had to rappel down ropes to rescue the trapped riders, turning a fun day into a nightmare of fear and helplessness. The nightmare did not end there. In June 2016, tragedy struck again when the tsunami derailed at a speed of 40 miles per hour, crashing into a support beam and plunging 30 feet to the ground. The violent fall injured 2 adults and 8 children, sending shockwaves through the park and the wider community. Fortunately, no lives were lost, but the aftermath exposed glaring safety failures. An investigation revealed that axles had been improperly welded during recent repairs, a catastrophic oversight that led to the mechanical failure.
See, that's interesting. This incident, I have never been able to find a report on, and despite my best efforts, the health and safety executive will not release any information on this when I've tried to do freedom of information requests, or whatever the equivalent is over there. So, hey, anyone in the UK, if you have the ability to, please try and get me this report. I would love to read it. I know it exists, I know it's detailed, but literally nothing outside of a few quotes from it have been released, and those were released to news articles and news outlets that twisted it all 6 ways to Sunday. So a nice full report would be beautiful. I'd love to cover this incident. I'd love to know what actually happened, because as far as I'm aware, nobody really knows, at least in the public. So I'll look it up real quick and see if there's anything out there. All right, so what I can gather from this is essentially there was a third-party inspector that the park hired in order to basically certify the rides for operation, work with the government and regulating authorities as far as, confirming that certain processes had been done so that their rides were safe to operate. And this third-party investigator, or I guess third-party inspector, did not properly ensure that all of the park's documentation was in place, and therefore it was called into question if all of the non-destructive testing needed on this ride was actually performed prior to the accident. So that's what we have as far as information. Again, this is from the Sun, though, so take it with a grain of salt. I wouldn't say we're looking at the most accurate source, but at least as a starting point, that is something we might know.
The ride inspector who had approved these faulty repairs was banned from the industry, and the park was slapped with
so I guess that's what that's about.
$100,000. The Tsunami ride was permanently removed, leaving behind a legacy of reckless maintenance and shattered trust that forever stained M&D's reputation. The New Texas Giant Incident. When the New Texas Giant first roared to life in 1990, it shattered records as the tallest wooden roller coaster in the world. Towering at 140 feet and racing at speeds up to 65 miles per hour, the ride promised pure adrenaline and exhilaration. After a major overhaul, it reopened in 2011, boasting a smoother...
I think major overhauls underselling it a little bit. The ride was basically just rebuilt, but we'll continue. I don't need to nitpick. Stop nitpicking.
more thrilling until tragedy struck.
Hey, this is my footage.
In July 2013, during a steep, heart-stopping drop, a larger woman slipped from her seat and plummeted 75.
Listen, this is why I don't show faces and I don't use names, because you're showing this person's face, and imagine being their family, their loved one, anyone related to them. Your loved one, parent, whatever, is now known by the wider internet as just, quote, the larger woman who died on Texas Giant. It's just so disrespectful to me. Like, how are people just okay with this?
5 feet to the ground. The fall was fatal. Investigators quickly zeroed in on a critical flaw. The lap bar system only secured riders at the waist.
Okay, that's not a flaw. The ride, you really don't need specific restraint designs in terms of, lap bar, shoulder harness, seatbelt, for specific rides. I mean, literally just about any ride would be okay with a seatbelt or shoulder harness. You can make those things work, as long as your containment analysis is done and, your device is sufficiently redundant. And then obviously there's more requirements. I've done a video on the ASTM standards, which are similar to the EN and most of the other standards that are out there for amusement rides. Go watch the video if you'd like to learn more. But simply having a lap bar on any ride does not make it unsafe, does not make it, inadequate as a restraint. The most intense ride in the world could easily operate with a lap bar. I mean, I would probably argue it does. Steel Vengeance is probably the most intense ride in the world, and it has a lap bar. And most of these RMCs are in that same category. So, yeah, there's examples. There's stuff in the standards. You can read through all of it and watch my videos if you want to learn more. But the gist of it is simply having a lap restraint does not make it's insufficient. It would have to be more to do with the rest of the design. How is that lap restraint designed? What are the ways that it locks? That sort of thing could make it insufficient potentially.
Failing to hold passengers firmly during sharp turns and intense speeds. Witnesses revealed the woman had voiced concerns about her lap bar not clicking securely before the ride began. Despite her worries, the attendant gave a quick reassurance that everything was fine. The combination of her size and the operator's oversight created a deadly flaw.
So, I don't know if that's actually the case, what the operators did. Obviously, if it was, should address the concerns of a rider. And I don't think anyone would disagree with that. However, the lap bar in this case, it's not going to click. At the time of the incident, at least, it used a hydraulic restraint, which doesn't click. It has an infinite number of locking positions. So just because you don't hear that does not mean there's anything unsafe about the ride.
The Vortex Ride
Disaster.
Oh boy.
I haven't even heard of this one.
Park, the Vortex
It could be a good thing or a bad thing.
Dizzying thrills, swinging riders high into the air while twisting them violently on a massive mechanical arm. But in 2018, what should have been another adrenaline-fueled spin almost turned deadly. During a routine ride, a large piece of foam suddenly tore loose from one of the seats, hurtling straight toward the crowd below. The object missed the riders by mere inches, an escape that felt nothing short of miraculous.
That's it?
Staff immediately shut the ride down, fearing a deeper mechanical failure. As tension gripped the park,
Tension gripped the park. Edge of our seat.
Had come from a seat that was already marked out of order, but hadn't been properly secured. Though the incident sparked panic and raised urgent safety questions, after thorough checks, the ride reopened within hours. That day, the line between excitement and disaster blurred dangerously close, proving how even small oversights can trigger near catastrophes on the world's most thrilling attractions. The Vortex ride's close call exposed the fragile balance behind every moment of adrenaline.
All right, I think this is a great example of how just AI is a pattern matching machine that has no concept of human reality. The foam used on those rides, hold on. The foam used on those rides is very similar to the foam used in this shoe. The worst case scenario, the absolute worst situation that could have happened is something like this.
The line between excitement and disaster blurred dangerously close.
Is this a near miss? Technically, yeah. Is it something that shouldn't have happened? Yes. You know, that foam should not have came loose. Was this a near accident, near death experience, near crossing the line between thrill and danger? No. Not how. How could you think that, well, it doesn't think. It's just matching patterns. Yeah, that... If you didn't know that this video is AI generated, I think this incident pretty well explains all of that. But wow. Wow.
Hypersonic XLC shut down. At
Shut down.
Pittman in Virginia, the Hypersonic XLC promised a lightning-fast thrill, blasting riders from 0 to 80 miles per hour in just 1.5 seconds, launching passengers up a towering 165-foot hill before plummeting down the other side. This 20-second adrenaline rush quickly became a park favorite when it opened in 2001. Powered by a unique air compression system, it was unlike anything else at the time. But the excitement came with a hidden cost. By 2007, whispers spread that riders who dared to raise their hands during the launch often ended up with dislocated shoulders.
All right, the word often is what I'm going to take issue with there. Did that happen? Was that a thing with this ride, especially in the original configuration? Yes. Often? If it was happening often, this ride would not have lasted as long as it did. Did it happen? Yes. Was it a concern? Yes, absolutely. The word often makes it sound like it's happening every day, and that's not the case. Wasn't the case in this ride situation. I mean, yeah.
Lawsuits piled up as
R.I.P. Anaconda.
casting a shadow over the ride's reputation. Yet the legal battles weren't the
I mean, you can even see in this video that's playing right now, you can see the train's original design. If you had a wider back, your shoulders really aren't being supported.
ride's only problem. Built as a prototype, the Hypersonic XLC was plagued by constant mechanical failures and relentless maintenance needs. Its frequent breakdowns drained the park's resources and tested the patience of thrill seekers who endured long waits only for the ride to go offline again.
Now that part's accurate.
Start and dramatic reputation, the ride couldn't keep up. Ultimately, the Hypersonic XLC was dismantled, fading into the background as a cautionary tale. An intense thrill that burned out too fast, lost to time and technical.
R.I.P. Anaconda.
Only memories of what could have been. The human trip.
All right, this is not even in our industry. I'm not covering it. I'm skipping.
When the Smiler opened at Alton Towers in England, it quickly earned its place as the world's most intense inverted roller coaster. With 14.
I think the bot means inverting roller coaster. Nitpicking. I'll stop.
Mind-bending inversions packed into a single ride, it promised a pulse-pounding experience unlike any other. Crowds flocked to the park, eager to take on what was billed as the ultimate thrill. But in 2015, the adrenaline rush turned into a nightmare that would haunt the theme park forever. On that fateful day, a car full of riders sped through the twisting track, only to collide violently
Alright.
with an empty test car stalled ahead. The screams echoed as metal crushed, and the front row passengers were trapped inside the wreckage, suffering severe injuries. And a thorough investigation revealed a damning truth. Earlier that day, the ride's safety systems had detected a fault. Instead of shutting down, operators chose to ignore the warning signs and kept the Smiler running, setting the stage for disaster. The negligence.
So, no, that's a very, very simplified, and honestly, it misses some of the information because it's so simplified version of the events there. So, on this ride, essentially, I've done a full video on this, so if you want to learn more, it's a little old, but still got some good info. Essentially, on that day, there's 2 shifts of maintenance, well, really 3, but 2 shifts of maintenance that we care about. That first shift came in, they were working on one of the ride units, one of the trains was transferred off, wasn't in operation. The ride was running with the other ride units, normally loaded with riders, whatever. Winds were pretty high that day. In fact, it was, I think, might have been outside of the operating range for that ride. I'm not sure, but it was very windy. Towards the end of the first shift of maintenance, that maintenance team, they're good with the ride unit. They just finished working on it. It's good to be put back into operation. So they hand the ride over to operations. They transfer the train on and hand the ride over to operations. Operations sends the ride unit that was just cleared by maintenance into the ride course empty. That train later valleys, stalls in the layout, gets stuck. Few minutes later, they send a loaded train out with riders behind it. That loaded train automatically stops at the top of the next lift hill, the control point, because the ride doesn't know where the position of that first train, that one that was empty, which obviously is valleyed, stalled on the course. Second shift of maintenance has now come in. They have no idea that that other ride unit was added to the track. So they go over, they see that, hey, it's stalled, we don't know of any other trains. This must be a electrical issue. We're going to go ahead and clear the block system and forward that next train through the layout, which is what they do, ultimately causing the accident because nobody communicated where that train was. It's one of the most studied, researched, well understood ride accidents in history. It's really been handled extremely well by all parties involved, and I think the entire industry is safer because of it.
This led to a high-profile lawsuit against Merlin, Alton Towers' parent company, forcing them to pay millions in compensation.
Again, that's not the useful info here.
And lingering fears about safety, the Smiler was back in operation.
It's not the Smiler.
In 9 months. Yet beneath the exhilarating twists and turns, the dark question remains: can a ride marked by tragedy ever be truly safe again?
Yes. This ride is probably now one of the safest that has ever operated because of this incident. And people like to say, lessons are learned in blood. This is certainly that case. And, as unfortunate as that is, there's a lot. I would think, I will say with confidence, all of Merlin is safer because of this. And honestly, they've been very transparent with the rest of the industry. The entire industry is safer because of lessons learned from this incident.
The Green Lantern roller coaster flopped. The ride promised a thrilling 360-degree spinning adventure designed to plunge riders right into the superhero's world. But what should have been a heart-pounding thrill quickly turned into a dizzying disappointment. Despite its flashy concept, the coaster's performance fell flat. Stretching only 825 feet with a top speed of just 37 miles per hour, it failed to deliver the adrenaline rush that thrill seekers crave. Instead of soaring through the sky, riders were tossed about unpredictably, like chaotic pinballs trapped in a wild machine.
Oh my god. Now, if it ran like that, this ride would still be around. This thing would be incredible. It's reversed footage.
Her design left many
Why? I don't know.
disoriented and uncomfortable, far from the exhilarating experience they expected. Complaints poured in, and the coaster's reputation sank fast. After only 6 years of operation, the Green Lantern was shut down in 2017.
Jeez, the thing's flying.
Years later, it was dismantled entirely, erased from the park's lineup and memory. What began as a highly anticipated, star-powered attraction ended as a glaring failure, an odd chapter in theme park history where hype collided with harsh reality, leaving behind only a whirlwind of disappointment, unanswered questions about its safety,
All right, I was kind of enjoying the trashing on this ride because, I mean, I didn't ride it, but everyone said it was terrible. It was kind of funny, but calling into question the ride's safety, that's where I draw the line. There was nothing to indicate that this ride was unsafe. It had nothing to indicate it ever operated in an unsafe condition. I think bringing that up is just completely ridiculous.
Perilous plunge tragedy. Knott's Berry Farm in California was famous for its thrilling rides, but
it's still there.
none stirred controversy like the Perilous Plunge water ride. When it opened in 2000, the ride promised a heart-stopping experience, a massive 115-foot drop that sent riders hurtling into the water below. Crowds were drawn to the adrenaline rush, but beneath the excitement lurked a dangerous flaw in safety. The ride relied on just a lap bar and a seatbelt to secure passengers.
Again, so we're back to another ride at those Intamin T-bars that had a rider ejection in that same era, late 90s, early 2000s. Was it a flaw? Maybe. This is another one that I'd love to learn more about. There's no report that I can find. I was looking for one the other day. If someone has it, please send it to me. I would love that. I'd do a video on it as soon as I could. But, without that report, we don't really know. Was it a flaw? Maybe. They did change the restraints afterwards. Was that out of an abundance of caution? Was that just because, they needed to? I don't know. There's no way to know, but it's possible. This was another incident with a larger rider and them, not wearing the restraint as Intamin, the ride's designer, intended. There was, from what I could find online, an ergonomics company released a blog post talking about how the restraint could have been worn improperly by a larger rider and caused the accident. But that is the only source of information we have, and it's just speculative. They even admit in the blog post from 2001 that they were speculating. So we really don't know if that was actually a flaw. Certainly, the ride was operated less eventfully after it had the new restraints added. So take that for what you will.
For many, this was enough, but for larger riders, it became a fatal weakness. In 2001, tragedy struck when a 300-pound woman slipped out of her restraints during the plunge, falling over 100 feet into the shallow pool beneath. The impact was deadly. She did not survive.
Thank you for specifying that the impact was deadly and that they did not survive. Thank you.
Confusion followed as the boat returned to the station with the restraints still locked in place, leaving everyone to wonder how the safety systems had failed so catastrophically.
Unrelated ride at a park on the other side of the country? Okay.
An investigation uncovered that the seatbelt was simply too short for the rider, forcing her to wear it over her legs. A dangerous workaround that led to her slipping free.
Yeah, again, that's not from an investigation. That's from a blog post from a company that had nothing to do with the incident or the ride or the park. Don't spread misinformation.
After a lawsuit from the victim's family, the park shut down the ride temporarily. When it reopened, it featured new 4-point restraints designed to keep every rider secure, finally addressing the deadly flaw that turned a thrilling ride into a tragic fall.
Again, debatable.
OPA coaster's deadly malfunction.
It's the OPA coaster now. Oh my god.
Theme park in Wisconsin.
You can tell it's at least an AI voice, right? Please. Hey, my footage. Well, not my footage. Six Flags America RIP's footage. My video.
Its bright, colorful carts and playful design gave the impression of a gentle, family-friendly ride. But in 2014, that cheerful facade shattered in a terrifying instant. Anthony Thyssen was enjoying a day out with his grandchildren when disaster struck.
Again, the video has nothing to do with the incident. It's just of the ride.
Rounded a sharp turn, the safety lap bar suddenly failed. Without warning, Anthony was violently thrown from the seat, plummeting 17 feet onto the unforgiving concrete below. That fall was the equivalent of dropping from a 1.5-story building, and the impact nearly claimed his life. Anthony was...
Yeah, so this is an interesting one. I've done a full video on it if you'd like to learn more. Essentially, this ride used ratcheting lap bars like a lot of similar rides. Those ratcheting lap bars have teeth that engage with the actual ratchet device. Over time on this specific ride, those teeth had become worn out. manufacturer of the ride, Zamperla, had introduced a service bulletin. I don't know if it was after the incident or before, basically saying to inspect those and how to test for if those are getting too worn down. I really couldn't tell you if it was before or after. In any case, it wasn't done prior to this incident, which ultimately resulted in the accident. It was very serious. It was handled, obviously through the proper channels. We have that service bulletin now, and, designs have changed. So take it for what you will. It is a very interesting incident. Obviously, it's very sad that it happened. Thankfully, everyone at least recovered. But, I think at least this one is worthy of being on the 15 roller coaster accidents that should never have happened.
The investigation revealed a shocking cause. The lap bar had not locked securely, leaving him vulnerable to the fatal ejection. This chilling accident forced the park to completely overhaul its safety protocols, and the OPA coaster was shut down permanently.
Oh, actually the ride still operates, just not at Mount Olympus. It's a traveling ride. I think it's with Wade Shows, and it's now operated without incident for close to a decade. So I think that shows the ride itself is safe, as long as it is operated and maintained properly.
What was once seen as a harmless family ride now carries a haunting legacy. A vibrant, colorful nightmare born from a single deadly mechanical failure.
Yeah, again, I mean, you don't go calling, every highway in the entire world, a violent, deadly nightmare just because there are accidents on it literally every week. You don't, in the same vein, call a roller coaster that because there was one incident on it, 10 years in the past. Especially when there are literally dozens of other rides that are exactly the same model that have operated without incident. It's just not reasonable.
Son of Beast. When wooden
Son of Beast
thrills turned deadly. When the Son of Beast opened at Kings Island in Ohio in 2000,
Wrong ride.
It was a marvel of engineering, towering 218 feet high and racing at 78 miles per hour. It claimed the titles of the tallest and fastest wooden roller coaster in the world. It pushed boundaries further by adding the only loop ever on a wooden coaster, promising an unforgettable thrill. But beneath the excitement lurked something darker. The ride's extreme speed and wooden frame combined for a brutal, unforgiving experience.
It was more to do with the way the ride was actually manufactured, and the budget that was used by its manufacturer that kind of resulted in the roughness and the problems this ride had. Being a wooden ride was not the core problem. You certainly could have made this ride safe. In fact, the ride was safe. I really shouldn't say that. You really could have made this ride smooth. And honestly, even if you continued to modify the design that, was in place at the time of the incidents, you could have gotten a smooth and safe ride. Was it financially the best decision? No, and obviously that's why the ride ended up closed. But at its core, the ride being wooden was not the problem.
Riders were tossed around by violent shakes and jerks that tested every bone.
Wrong ride.
In 2006, disaster struck when a support beam snapped, sending a train careening wildly and injuring 27 people who had to be rushed to the hospital.
Careening wildly? No, not at all. So I've done a video on this. Very interesting incident. Essentially, what happened is a support did crack. Actually, a couple in the same area. Basically, an upright support for the wooden track cracked. That caused the track to sag down, which resulted in a very hard jolt for the riders on the train. On a very rough ride, add another really rough element. And that resulted in injuries for the riders on the train. Very serious in a lot of the cases. The train itself stayed on the track the whole time. It was not out of control. It was honestly kind of scarier than it being out of control because train returned to the station and everything looked normal. There would be nothing out of the ordinary other than the reports from the riders explaining what happened. So honestly, it might be a little scarier to tell the truth in this case, at least in my opinion.
The coaster was immediately shut down for repairs and reopened in 2009, but the nightmare wasn't over. Another accident followed, this time causing serious head trauma to a rider. The risks had become too great. Faced with a dangerous legacy,
And those other incidents, those were literally just due to the ride being that rough. They weren't due to specific, incidents, specific causes. The ride was just really rough, and, certain riders react differently to that. But, there's really only one serious incident on Son of Beast that was directly a result of a flaw or a malfunction.
The park pulled the plug on the Son of Beast for good. It was demolished in 2012. Its towering wooden frame reduced to rubble. What was meant to be a record-breaking thrill ride ended as a haunting symbol of thrills gone wrong, remembered more for pain than for excitement. Action Park.
I'm not even going to watch the Action Park part. I'm sure whatever our friend says is probably accurate.
Dueling Dragons. When the battle turned deadly.
Deadly? I don't think so, bud.
Universal Studios. Orlando launched Dueling Dragons in 1999. A roller coaster unlike any other. Two colossal trains raced side by side, twisting and turning dangerously close, as if...
All right, not dangerously close. At no point were the ride's clearance envelopes violated. The rides were a safe distance apart at all times. Not dangerous.
Two mighty dragons were locked in fierce combat. The ride's heart-pounding intensity made it one of the park's top attractions, thrilling guests with every near miss and roaring drop. In 2011, the ride was reborn as Dragon Challenge and moved into the wizarding world of Harry Potter.
Nitpick again. The ride was not moved. That would be pretty ridiculous. The land around it was rebuilt. Nitpick, sorry.
An even greater excitement, but that promise was shattered when tragedy struck during a daring loop. A rider was hit squarely in the face by a flying object.
By a flying rider, apparently.
Hurled from the other train. The blow was devastating. She lost an eye in an instant. Universal Studios reacted swiftly, staggering the launches so the trains no longer raced side by side. This safety measure, while preventing further injuries, drained much of the ride's adrenaline-fueled thrill.
I think it's important to point out here, that was indeed the solution to keep this ride operational. Did they need to do it? Could they have found a way to keep the ride dueling? Absolutely, yeah. And I think, looking at modern loose article policies at that park in particular, having something where riders have to go through some kind of screening where they have no loose articles on them during the ride, and storing them in lockers or something like that, could have been implemented. Did it make sense financially for this situation? No, they were planning to get rid of the ride. But, the dueling aspect itself was not unsafe. It could have been continued to be done safely, as well as far as loose articles are concerned.
Without the simultaneous dueling action, the magic faded. By 2017, Dragon Challenge
Wrong ride.
permanently closed. The once electrifying battle between dragons ended quietly, replaced by newer, safer attractions.
All right. First of all, not the ride that replaced it. Second of all, safer. I'm not so sure. I mean, the difference between, a 1990s coaster and a 2020s roller coaster is minimal in terms of safety. I do believe, actually, interestingly, Dragon Challenge and all of those B&M inverts that, would be a Class 5 ride, I don't believe they're ASTM compliant anymore. Meaning they couldn't be designed with those restraints today, in the US anyway. I could be wrong on that. Someone tell me if I am. So I guess technically, if you want to go by the standards, yeah, they could be considered slightly more safe now because obviously the newer rides, they have to be compliant with the standard that exists today. Curious though on if that's actually accurate. So someone tell me who's smarter than me, please. Beyond that though, the safety differences are pretty much non-existent between one of those rides and now. They're virtually the same. I mean, we're talking about the difference between flying on a plane built in the early 2000s versus now. Yes, there's some enhancements, but, both are incredibly safe.
The ride's dark legacy lingered.
The dark legacy.
Even the wildest thrills can carry deadly consequences.
There was no death. Nobody died. There was a injury. And in the grand scheme of a ride, operating for over 20 years like this one did, or maybe close to 20 years, I don't know. One injury, one serious injury? I mean, I'm sure there were more, but I'm sure there were more, but one serious injury that, you know, made the news cycle, was serious enough to make the news cycle. That's pretty darn good, considering the millions of riders that went on this ride. I mean, we're talking Universal Orlando, a park that operates 24/7, a park that operates 365 days a year. One singular major incident. That's incredible. That's incredibly safe.
The world's tallest slide turned deadly.
I'm surprised he pronounced it right. Did he pronounce it right? Hold on.
August 7th, 2016, the custom water coaster named Farouk.
Farouk. Okay, well, I spoke too soon.
At Schlitterbahn Water Park in Kansas City, the Verricht water
Okay, I spoke way too soon.
rising 168 feet into the sky, it was the tallest water slide in the world. Riders dropped a jaw-dropping 17 stories before launching over another 5-story hump at speeds reaching 70 miles per hour. It was built to impress, but the danger was there from the start. During test runs, rafts repeatedly became airborne when overloaded. Instead of redesigning the slide to fix the flaw, the park installed a netting system around the track, hoping it would keep riders safe.
So that's not true. The ride did have issues with overspeeding and going over the hill and getting airborne. That is accurate. The park, they did redesign the ride. They implemented braking pads that you can actually see in the video. They're at the base of the drop. They're the black mats that would slow down a raft as it approached. Essentially, the idea was that the rafts would get slowed down so much that they couldn't even clear the hill on their own with momentum. They would need the help of those water jets, which are located just as you ascend that hill. So that was the idea. Was it actually a fix? No. Was the netting installed as well? Yeah, it was. Was that to solve that problem? Not really, no. This is a really interesting one because, you know, this ride was designed without a formal engineer. The structure was designed by an engineer. The ride itself was not. That being said, the creator of the ride had founded NBGS, which was a major water slide water coaster manufacturer. So he had experience in the industry, but, you know, got a little off track with it and ultimately designed an unsafe ride. Was the netting really the fatal flaw of this ride? I think it was a symptom, but it was not the core issue.
When the attraction opened in 2014, strict weight limits were put in place, but the design flaw remained a threat. In 2016, the inevitable happened. A 10-year-old boy was ejected from his raft mid-ride, suffering fatal injuries. 2 women...
So, was not ejected from the raft. The raft itself lifted off of the slide. Riders stayed in contact with their seat.
Men riding in the same raft were also badly hurt as the raft went airborne. The investigation revealed that uneven weight distribution had launched the raft off the track, a catastrophic.
So that's not true. The weight distribution was correct during the incident. Again, the designers of the ride had experience with water slides, extensive experience at that. And they had put in place specific loading plans for where riders should sit according to their weight. And per their instructions, the riders were in the correct place. And honestly, you know, following the precedent of other similar rides, you know, they did it right. The weight distribution was not a factor in the accident.
Flaw no netting could prevent. The Verrucht was permanently closed and dismantled that same year. The tragedy also changed the industry, leading to new laws banning theme parks from conducting their own safety inspections.
So it's specific to, I believe, the state of Kansas, which did not have any amusement ride regulations in place before this incident. Afterwards, they actually adopted a pretty good law, in my opinion, where basically they are requiring parks to comply with ASTM standards, which, truth be told, that is what every single municipality, state, government, everywhere should just adopt. That would be the perfect ride standard, ride law.
A hard lesson written in tragedy. These roller coaster accidents remind us that even the most thrilling rides carry risks hidden beneath the excitement. Behind every twist and drop, safety must come first, or the consequences can be devastating. While theme parks strive to entertain, these stories reveal the cost of mistakes and oversights. As you step back from the edge of the seat, remember, every ride has a story, and some are darker than anyone expects.
Yeah, like a piece of foam.
Stay safe and always ride wisely.
So, I mean, not terrible advice. Always research your stuff, but I think also don't be scared. You know, I go back to the analogy that I used halfway through this video. You know, your average highway sees, you know, probably one deadly accident at least per week. Do you see that on the local news? Do you see that all the time? No. And do you hyperfixate on it every time you drive on that road? No. Should you? Probably. There's more danger there than on any roller coaster. And it comes down to that. You know, us in the amusement industry, we have the same problem airlines do. Injuries and incidents are so rare that every time they happen, they become front page news. And, you know, that's at least partially a good thing. You know, we always want to strive to be safer. But in that same vein, don't get too worked up about minor things like, you know, ride stoppages in control areas like brakes and lift hills and stuff like that. You know, all comes down to it. With all that being said, thank you very much for watching this very long video going into the depths of the AI brain rot slop. I hope you enjoyed. If you haven't already, I have 2 other videos from last year that you can watch on the same topic, covering some other videos. Definitely evolved a little bit since last year. Some improvements. Oh, who am I kidding? Everything's gotten worse, but, you know, at least it's more interesting, and hopefully you guys are, you know, helping to pay my rent, which I appreciate. If you really want to help pay my rent, please watch the educational videos. Those are so much better than these, and they have so much more information. Go watch them now. They're linked on screen right after this one. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all next week. Goodbye.